Greetings, love icons. Greetings, love warriors. Today we have a really special topic for you tonight. How to ignite your intuition. It's going to be short. It's going to be a short conversation because I have something very important I need to take care of tonight. but we're going to get straight into it. How to ignite your intuition. Your intuition is very important. The intuition is centered in two chakras. Two chakras. Most of the time, what you hear about is the third eye in terms of intuition, but your intuition is also centered in the sacral. And you know what? I'm gonna add in a third one for this conversation, which is the solar plexus chakra. Okay. Before we get into it, I want to introduce myself. My name is Pangea Northstar. I am an empath and a teacher, a sound therapist, and I love to share. We are talking about attracting love energy on this segment that we do every Tuesday night. Greetings, Zena Electra. We're talking about attracting love energy on most Tuesday nights. And if not talking about that directly, we're always talking about something that is related. Tonight, we're talking about intuition, which is also very important in attracting love energy, especially when we're talking about love in the romantic sense, because we need our intuition to guide us as to who is right for us. Right? Sometimes we're simply being attracted based on an old pattern, based on trauma, on someone's unresolved trauma that is matching the frequency of our unresolved trauma. And that's not a healthy way to go about things. Okay, that may be a pattern that you find yourself stuck in without realizing it. So just, kind of check in with yourself and ask yourself, is it possible that I am pursuing people or susceptible or open to, receptive to people that are pursuing me because we share the same type of unresolved trauma? That's actually very, very common. Okay. So, one of the ways you can recognize this, if you're wondering about that, is just ask yourself, when I date people, when I'm getting to know a potential mate, are some of the things that we're discovering that we have in common based on trauma? And sometimes this doesn't come out right away. Sometimes this comes out later in indirect ways. If you're being really honest with yourself about your unresolved trauma, it can become a lot easier to recognize that unresolved trauma in someone else. Okay. So, greetings, Tapia. So glad to have you joining us tonight. Greetings, greetings. You guys, we're going to get into a conversation about igniting your intuition. Okay. Very important. So, when we're talking about igniting your intuition, and we are going to start with information pertaining to the third eye chakra. Your third eye has to do with your intuition and your imagination. Okay. It's going to be very difficult for you to tune in to your intuition if you are not open to your own imagination. Imagination is the flip side of intuition. Okay. And many times we're taught that, when you grow up, that, you set down your imagination, you get down to real life, to adult things, and that engaging with their intuition, or your imagination rather, is not the adult thing to do. And that is very much a falsehood, very much a falsehood. When we think of people who are revered in our society in terms of celebrity, many of those people are famous and revered, and the work that we're admiring from them is coming from their imagination. This is true for actors, actresses, singers, fashion designers, artists, right? Many, many people that are out here letting the world know who they are doing so from their imagination. Okay, so this is a very important part of your intuition. Yes, Jim Carrey. I see Zena saying Jim Carrey. Right. This applies to comedians as well, but also, and you hear him talking about his processes as a comedian and where he pulls his characters from, that has a lot to do with imagination. But just ask yourself, what would happen if he got these, downloads through his imagination, but didn't trust them, right? What if he didn't trust his gut feelings that this is what will make people laugh? This is what will resonate with people, okay? It's very important when we're talking about your intuition and igniting your intuition. One of the first things you have to begin to do is trust your intuition, trust your gut feelings, okay? And a big problem with this is that a lot of times we're not able to recognize what is that voice of our intuition. Sometimes we can't tell the difference between the voice of our inner knowing and perhaps other voices, okay? There are legions and legions of voices that we are exposed to every day through social media, right? And through entertainment media that tell us what we should think, what we should feel, and what things mean, right? And how to interpret things that we see in the world around us and, actions that we see from other people, right? But we have to know how to distinguish our voice from the legions of other voices, okay? Your intuition is your inner voice, your inner guidance. And if you're not able to distinguish how you interpret things, what's best for you, and what things mean in your life, this can be a very confusing way to walk through life, okay? It's not, you're not gonna arrive at the circumstances or the things that you want in life if you're not able to recognize your own inner voice. Your intuition is your divine guidance and is designed to lead you to your highest timeline. So we have to learn to trust that voice, but you can't trust it until you learn to recognize it, okay? So how do you recognize your intuition? Okay, how do you recognize that voice that's leading you in the right direction? Okay, one of the best ways to recognize your intuition is by paying attention to the feelings that come up in your body from that voice. Okay, so for instance, if you're planning on going somewhere and say you're making plans, you're about to go out. We'll use this example. You're about to go out, okay? And something inside you starts telling you, don't go there. Don't go. You need to stay home or you need to do something else, okay? If this is just the voice of fear, think about how fear feels in your body. Fear is accompanied by nervousness in your body, by dysregulation in your body. It may come up with sadness or trigger old memories of something else that happened that was fearful. Fear is a very distinct feeling, okay? You may feel shaky, you may feel nauseous, okay? That may be a voice that is based on fear. Fear will cause you to start imagining terrible things that could happen, okay? Whereas when it's just your intuition, this is just a gut feeling, this is more of a quiet voice. This is more of a calm feeling that will come over you. Like, I don't think I should do it. I don't think I should go. I think I should stay home or I should do something else. It's not necessarily going to make you feel sick and queasy and start imagining that horrible things are going to happen, okay? So also your intuition is going to feel related to something that is familiar in many cases, okay? Like if you have a feeling that you shouldn't go somewhere and you should stay home, then perhaps instead you'll get a feeling or an imagination of somewhere else you'd like to go or something else you would feel more comfortable with staying home and doing, okay? Rather than beginning to imagine horrible things that are gonna happen, okay? Give me some fire in the chat if that makes sense to you. And if you think that you could recognize the difference in anxiety in your body and a calm feeling in your body. Okay? Now, another thing about intuition is that your intuition is not only a quiet voice, but it'll be the first thing that comes up in your mind. Many times, the very first thought that comes up in your mind is the thought that you quickly dismiss, and it's replaced with something else. Okay. And that something else will be something that's from an outside source. Oh, you may get that first thought that, oh, I shouldn't go. But then your friends' voices who want you to go come up in your mind. Or maybe the voice of someone, if it's in the case that it's fear, the voice of something you heard online. Well, I heard that, people have been, victimizing people in this area, or that someone else had a wreck recently. There'll be some other outside voice that comes up in your head that's not from you, that's obviously identifiable as someone else's voice. Right. Zena says big facts, first thoughts, think long, think wrong. That's so true. So I want you guys to begin to practice this, okay? And what I'm saying about it being the first voice, I want you all to begin to notice when a thought comes up that you're quickly dismissing, okay? And it's something that you could be in such a habit of doing that you don't even realize that you're doing it, okay? So, greetings, Shanae. Thank you so much for letting us know that you're here. So, a lot of times we are dismissing that first thought so quickly that we don't even realize that we've done it. But I want you to start stopping and noticing when you have had a thought that you quickly swatted away. Majority of the time, that is going to be your intuition. That is going to be the right answer. Many of us have been hushed, so much in your childhood years, hushed so much. You've been silenced so much in your childhood years and your young adult years that you haven't had an opportunity to become familiar with your own voice. But I want you to begin practicing this. And one of the just very basic 101 type of ways, intuition 101 type of ways to begin to do this is to, when you think you've recognized something that you're like, I think this is my gut, I think this is my intuition, just go with it. Just follow it, even if it seems strange to other people. Don't doubt your own gut feeling, okay? And one of the reasons that a gut feeling is called a gut feeling is because our solar plexus chakra, which is right here below the sternum but above the navel, that is where in our body, if we get quiet when we're feeling something, that is where in our body we will physically feel this, okay? Now, I always say your gut feeling is never wrong, okay? One of the root words that the word God comes from is gut, okay? So that's very important to think about. Your gut feelings are one of the ways that God or your divine guidance or higher power, however you want to say it, whatever you're comfortable with, as we're inclusive here. That's one of the ways that your divine guidance speaks to you, through your gut feeling. Okay, this is one of our protections in life. Okay, so many times you can avoid having to physically defend yourself if you will spiritually defend yourself. Honor that voice that's coming from within. Okay, now another thing I want to talk to you about is asking questions. Asking questions. Okay. A lot of times we don't stop and question things. Okay. And what I'm talking about is stopping and questioning the thoughts that come in your mind. When you have a question about something, like today, perfect example. Someone sent me a video and the thought immediately came in my mind, is this AI? Is this AI? We're living in a world where it's getting more and more difficult to determine when you're hearing from a real person versus AI. Okay. And I was listening to the video that they sent me was a video of a really well-known actor making a speech, and it was saying, "This is the voice of so and so." I'm not going to say who it was, but this is the voice of so and so, and they were making a speech that had a lot to do with women, right? Has a lot to do with women and some things about women being independent and being on their own. But something about this message, even though I am an independent woman, something about this message was just rubbing me wrong. So something told me to go and investigate. And the first thing I did was Google, has this actor made speeches on this particular topic? And I found out that they have. But I'm still doing some investigating. I'm still asking myself, even though I found out that they have made speeches on this particular topic, just the messaging of this topic, I was like, no, this is not hitting right. So I'm going to keep investigating it. And I don't know if it's that message really is not from that actor, or if it's that this message that the actor is delivering has a glitch in it, has an agenda in it. I sense an agenda underlying this message, right? So keep asking questions. Ask questions and ask the right questions to come to the answer that is trying to surface for you. Okay. So in this particular scenario, it may not be that this voice I'm hearing is AI, though I suspect it is, but it could just be that this is a harmful agenda that's being expressed. So, and it made me become more keenly aware that I need to be mindful and guard against the underlying messaging that was in that video. That messaging is not right for me. That messaging is not right for me at all. But I had to stop, first of all, and recognize that I'm getting a little tingle. I'm getting a little tingle in my tummy. Something is off about this. Though I like that actor whose voice that supposedly is, and a lot of the things that they were saying, on the surface seemed very positive and very empowering. Okay, but as I asked more questions, this is talking about independent women, strong women. But as I listened further and allowed my mind, my imagination to take hold and start asking more questions, I discovered that the underlying messaging in that video was actually negative. It's actually negative because it's talking to women about being independent, which is good, but it's also making being isolated sound good. Okay. And there's no reason for independent women to be isolated. Surely, some other women at the very least, if not even males, even if you choose not to marry or whatever, or that's totally fine. That's cool. That stuff is political. But what about your family members? Even your male family members are having male friends in your life that are of value to your life. What about your female friends and family that are of value to your life? As a woman, surely other women that are deep wells of nurturing, that are resources, that are creative, that are giving and loving. So there was some kind of underlying messaging saying that you're there's value in doing everything on your own, and that's not realistic. Everybody needs a supportive environment, needs community around them, right? So sometimes your intuition is telling you that, hey, there's something underlying here. This may not be bad on the surface, but something underlying can be harmful to you to internalize. Okay. So Those type of things are very, very important. So this kind of takes us into um, the energy of the sacral chakra. Okay, so with the sacral chakra, we talk a lot about sensuality, but I also want you to think in terms of ancestral connections. I also want you to think in terms of boundary setting. Okay, so sometimes there is something that is coming to you. You're feeling an instinctual feeling, a connection to something that is either great, that is in our collective consciousness or collective subconscious. Okay. And this feeling, sometimes it's really good, or you could be sensing that there's something negative you're picking up on. And this is something that has deep ancestral connections. Okay. This could be connected to ancestral wounding, for example. Okay. For example, we're talking about, issues that have to do with women and the struggle of women, collective wounding around women's issues. Okay. This could be a type of intuition that's coming to you from your womb space. Okay. So for women, the sacral chakra is the womb space. Not to say that men don't also have a sacral chakra, even though they don't have a womb. In the spirit realm, energetically, men have a connection to the divine mother. Okay. Now, men are mentally trained and socialized to kill that aspect within themselves and to disconnect from the divine feminine. But I encourage men to tap in, because that is a very important part of your intuition. Women have intuition as a primary source of being able to protect themselves, because women on average, are not as physically strong as men. Women have been given a greater sense of intuition, a connection to the spirit realm through the womb, and a connection to Mother Gaia, to Mother Earth through the womb, as well as a connection to Source through the womb. Okay, so your intuition that comes from the sacral chakra is very, very important. And it does have to do with honoring the divine mother, the divine feminine energy within yourself and in everything around you, as well as honoring nature and honoring yourself, turning your nurturing energy in towards yourself. Okay. Now, despite common beliefs, men are also encouraged to give in ways that are unhealthy for them. Okay. And many times our intuition is trying to protect us from that. Okay. Protect us from giving of our energy in ways that drain us rather than serving us. And I always say, your energy is for you first. Okay. So don't discount things that may be coming to you through your intuitive channels that are having to do with self-preservation, the preservation of your energy. Okay, don't discount that at all. That's still intuition that's coming to you and saying, you know what, you're taking on too much, or you're giving to others in ways that you're not giving to yourself. That's self-preservation energy. Okay, and in a moment of you needing to say no, many times, if this is having to do with preserving your energy, if you stop and pay attention, remember we talked about you can feel something in your gut, but sometimes that no is coming from your sacral chakra, which is in the pelvis, within that space. Okay, so another way you can ignite your energy is by beginning to pay attention to where the energy is more enlivened or more concentrated in your body when these thoughts come up for you. So after you take that first step of recognizing that voice, that first voice that comes into you, you take the second step of paying attention and trusting that something important is coming up out of you. You take that third step of investigating a little bit more, asking some more questions. And the fourth step is asking yourself, where do I feel this in my body? Where do I feel this in my body? Okay. Now, I'll tell you all, I'm very much in touch with my intuition. But unless I'm doing like a visualization, a meditation, something that's super intentional, I'm not feeling. I'm not feeling it in my third eye. Can I get a hello? Give me some fire in the chat if that makes sense to you. I rarely ever feel a sensation in my third eye. It doesn't happen unless I'm intentionally deploying that intuitive energy to see something. I'm asking a question of something that I initiated. But when something is external is coming to me and I need to decipher what's going on in an instant, I'm not really getting a sensation in my third eye. Some of my intuitives in the chat can let me know, how does this work for you? Where do you typically feel things that you need to decipher that are coming to you externally? Where are you feeling that? For me, it's not happening in my third eye. For me, that's happening in my gut. That's happening in my sacral chakra. Okay. So, you all, I've given you some steps here, 4 steps to ignite your intuition. Of course, you can play around with things like oracle cards, tarot cards. You can learn how to use your pendulum. You can do visualizations, just imagining yourself in higher timelines and just asking yourself a series of questions to discover what it is that you really want out of a particular situation or what it is you want out of life. And that will also increase your intuition. Okay. But yeah, that's it. I see some comments in the chat, right? Gut emotions. Yes, that's where you're feeling it. But third eye, right? Not feeling that. I see that comment there. Okay, you guys, we're gonna wrap it up. We're keeping it short for today. But I really thank y'all for joining me, for participating. If questions, I don't see questions coming in the chat, so we won't go there. But for those who are watching this video later, if you have some questions, please put them in the comments. I do check my comments and I do respond. So thank you all for joining me tonight. And every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. Central. And I will see you next week on Attracting Love Energy. Peace.